This is lesson 9.2. It's the first part of a two-part video on quadratic functions. Now remember, we've been talking about quadratic functions, and they have in the past looked like this as an equation. They were written out in this form. We talked about this, that the h has an effect on the parent function of a quadratic function. Remember, the parent function is a parabola that looks sort of like this. The h will shift the graph to the left or to the right, and the k will shift the graph up or down. Now you also might remember that when you graph a quadratic function, you get this parabola, and parabolas are symmetrical, and cutting the parabola right in half is something called the axis of symmetry. It's this vertical line that passes right through the middle of the parabola. At the very tip, at the bottom, or at the top of the parabola is a point called the vertex, and we had defined the vertex before as the coordinate hk. Today we're going to look again at quadratic functions, only we're going to look at it in the standard form. So we talked a little bit about this yesterday, where y equals ax squared plus bx plus c is the standard form of a quadratic equation. And it might look easier for you if I write it in with actual numbers. So this equation, y equals x squared minus 6x plus 4, is a quadratic function or quadratic equation written in standard form. And what you need to do first is identify the letters, or excuse me, the numbers in front of each of the letters. These are the coefficients a, b, and c. So for this quadratic equation, a, since there's no number written there, is just a 1. So a is 1. The b, the number in front of the x, now be careful because it includes the minus, so the b is negative 6. And the c would be positive 4. Now why am I having you write out a, b, and c? Because we're going to use these numbers, these a, b, and c values, to figure out what the axis of symmetry is and what the vertex is. And here's how you do it. First of all, remember that the axis of symmetry is a vertical line. Vertical lines are written as an equation like this: x equals. For example, if this vertical line passed through this parabola at 3, then the equation for this line would be x equals 3. You can calculate what the axis of symmetry is just by knowing the values a, b, and c and using this formula. The axis of symmetry, you should write this down, is x equals negative b over 2a. So let's do an example. Here's a problem. Y equals x squared minus 6x plus 4 is a quadratic equation. First thing you're going to do on your paper is write the problem down. And then you're going to want to identify what the a, b, and the c are. Now some of you might want to skip the step where you write down a, b, and c, but trust me, writing it down and making it clear is going to make it way easier to solve the problem and find the axis of symmetry and find the vertex. So the a in this problem, there's no coefficient on the x squared term, so it's implied to be a 1. The b in this problem is negative 6, and the c in this problem is 4. To find the axis of symmetry, you're going to find x equal to negative b over 2 times a. So all you have to do is put the value of b in place of the letter b and the value of a in place of the letter a. But you have to be careful because negative b, anytime you replace a letter with a number, you put it in parentheses. The value of b is negative 6 over 2 times a. The value of a is 1. So for this axis of symmetry, the opposite of negative 6, or negative negative 6, is positive 6. 2 times 1 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So the axis of symmetry is 3. This x equals 3 represents a line that passes through the coordinate x equals 3. Now eventually we're going to graph some quadratic equations, but for today all I want to do is focus on how to find the axis of symmetry and then use that to find the vertex. So the vertex is a point on the quadratic function or on the parabola. So to find the vertex, what you're looking for is an x and a y coordinate. The vertex will always be on the axis of symmetry. So if you found the axis of symmetry, which is x equals 3, then you found half of the vertex. You found the x coordinate. So you can put that there. To figure out what the y coordinate is, you're going to take the value 3, which is x, and you're going to put it back into this equation. So I'm going to write out the equation y equals x squared minus 6x plus 4. And then for each x, I'll replace it with 3. So y equals, replace the x with 3 squared minus 6 times, replace the x with 3 plus 4. 3 squared is 9 minus 6 times 3 is 18 plus 4. 9 minus 18 is negative 9. Negative 9 plus 4 is negative 5. So y equals negative 5 is the y coordinate. That's the vertex. And that's pretty much it. So when you're given a quadratic equation, step 1 is to write out what the a and the b and the c are, the coefficients in the equation. Then you use those letters to find the axis of symmetry using this formula. That gives you the equation of a line x equals 3. That also gives you the x coordinate for the vertex. And you use the x coordinate and put it back into the equation to figure out what the y coordinate is. All right, so let's do another example. Here is problem 2. Problem 2 says y equals 2x squared minus 4x plus 5. Write that down. If you need to pause the video, you can hit pause. So the a value in this equation is 2. The b value in this equation is negative 4. And the c value is 5. Now, I've color-coded these, but that's not how your assignment will be. That's not how the test will be. So I'm trying to get you to see the a, b, and the c clearly. So your first step is to find the axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry, and it helps if you write out the equation for the axis of symmetry each time you do these. That way you'll remember it and you won't have to worry about getting it wrong. X equals negative b over 2a. So x equals negative, in this case b is negative 4 over 2 times a, in this case a is 2. Negative 4 makes positive 4. 2 times 2 is 4, so the axis of symmetry is x equals 1. Again, this x equals 1 represents a line, a vertical line, that passes through x equals 1. To find the vertex, you're looking for a coordinate, an x and a y. If you found the axis of symmetry, then you have found half of the vertex. The x coordinate is 1. Now to find the y coordinate, you just put x equals 1 in place of the x in each of the x values in the equation. So 2 times 1 squared minus 4 times 1 plus 5. 1 squared is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. Minus 4 times 1 is 4 plus 5. 2 minus 4 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 5 is 3. And that's the vertex. So what I'm going to have you do is finish an assignment that helps you practice finding the axis of symmetry and finding the vertex. But before I finish, I wanted to show you a couple of different examples. So in this first example, your first step is to write out what A and B and C are. The A value is always the coefficient in front of the x squared term. In this case, it's 1. The B value is always the coefficient in front of the x term. Well, in this problem, there is no x term, so it would just be 0. And that makes the C value 3. In the second example, the A is always the coefficient in front of the x squared term. In this case, it's 1. The B is always the coefficient in front of the x term. In this case, it's 3. And the C value is always the number that's all by itself at the end, which in this case, there's nothing, so it has to be 0. So just keep that in mind when you're finishing the problems that I give you for your homework today. And that's it.